authors on this paper and this set of slides as well from the guidelines team. So just a bit of an introduction. OpenAIRE is an infrastructure in Europe for open access. We're funded by the European Commission to support their open access policy. We harvest open access publications as well as non-open access publications, and at present we have over 8 million publications within our infrastructure from over 400 data sources. That's mainly open access repositories. We work along the basis of a participatory approach, so everyone contributes to our infrastructure and everyone can contribute if they follow our guidelines. And we are also based on working on previous infrastructures that are already existing, so the previous driver infrastructure and existing standards as well. So we work along two lines. We have a human network, human infrastructure, and they do the outreach with libraries and promoting the guidelines and bringing the repositories on board. And then the technical team who are building a very robust technical infrastructure, who are doing the indexing and curating of all the metadata that's coming in. So there are two sides really of our project. We work in sort of three ways, as I already mentioned, the technical infrastructure, which provides the robust back end. And the big blue circle in the middle is the open access repositories, which we're linking to and bringing together and harvesting all this metadata and information together. So publications, metadata on research data, and metadata on funding information. And the pink box are the services that can be built on top of all this, and all the valuable services that can come out of bringing all together this information. And mainly for the European Commission, we can then monitor the research output that comes out of the funding schemes. And we can build services for project coordinators and generate publication lists. So as I've mentioned, we implement the Open Access, the European Commission policy and their requirements. Many of you will have heard that there was an open access pilot in FP7, which we supported and we're still supporting, as well as for the ERC. And next on the horizon is Horizon 2020, where we heard today from Jaakko Saarinen from the European Commission that open access will be mandatory for all projects. Just to put it in context, the FP7 open access pilot was for 20% of the programme areas. So we were collecting all the publications for 20%. Via green open access and gold as well. And now at Horizon 2020 it's in 100% of the programme areas. So that's a much stronger mandate, and it's going to be a much bigger remit for collecting all these publications via repositories. We're also moving from a publication infrastructure to something bigger and more comprehensive, so gathering all the contextual information to do with the publication, so the funding information, the programme, the author, the institution, and the associated data. So in our data model, it's pretty complicated. We have all kinds of interesting aspects that we're collecting, so not just publications, as I've said, but also data sets and the data providers, author information, and institutional information. So why guidelines? Well, in terms of OpenAIRE, what we really want to gather from open access repositories is the funding information. And who is funded what in the programme area, so that we'll be able to monitor for the European Commission who has published what in what publication stream, programme stream. We're also collecting information about the access rights, so is it open access, and the licensing information. That's very crucial via our guidelines. And in grey at the bottom you can see we're also collecting metadata on any associated data sets and related publications, as well as embargo data information. So this slide encapsulates what we're collecting via our guidelines. And ultimately, if you comply to the open access guidelines, you'll be able to comply to the European Commission's open access mandate. So we have collaborated and over the years produced a set of guidelines, mainly for publication guidelines, but now we've produced 3 sets of guidelines, and I'll explain them to you. And we've worked closely with the big players in the field and well-established standards. That's the key thing to mention. And we have 3 guidelines. The literature guidelines, which many of you will be familiar with, it's now version 3.0. We have data guidelines for data managers who run data repositories who want to expose metadata about, and we're gathering the metadata about these data repositories. And the CRIS guidelines for CRIS managers as well, we're harvesting information from CRIS repositories. For literature repositories, a bit of background, these are based largely on Dublin core fields, very simple in that regard. We're now into version 3.0. For the data archives, mainly based on DataCite, we've worked with them, so it's quite a basic DataCite kernel set that we're harvesting from. And for CRIS as well, we work closely with EuroCRIS, and we're bringing in sets from the Serif XML model. The OAI sets that we're collecting, so to speak, the OpenAIRE set is a merge of our previous guidelines. So this is open access content plus funding information. And to make it backwards compatible, we're also bringing in the funding resources and data and CRIS I've mentioned. So we're about linking publications to data. We have a portal where you can see all these publications in alignment with the publication stream and the project and funding program that they're coming from. So please get involved with OpenAIRE. We're all about expanding, we're all about interoperability. You can join us today. We're here, we have posters, quite a few of us from the initiative are around. You can test your repository to see if you can become compatible. And you can also get involved by taking a look at our guidelines page, and you're welcome to contribute and test your repository via our validator. So thank you very much.